We're just going to get straight into the conversation, just to remind everyone what the conversation is about. It is the closing the capability gap, building tech-confident talent for the new collar economy. And I'll start with you, Zizile. So what do you define? What defines a new collar economy or a new collar worker in today's economy?
Thank you for that, Mugwena. But I believe that the colleagues or the speakers that spoke before us have actually defined what new collar work is. We're actually discussing it with my colleagues here. So the moment you mention work, the word work, and you mention AI, automation, and technology in one sentence, you are actually defining new collar work. Now, it bridges the gap between traditional work and emerging technologies. Now, in the metals and engineering sector that I've been so fortunate to work in for so many years, we are highly reliant on artisans. Now, when we talk new collar work and artisans, it would be highly skilled artisans that actually use automated machinery such as your CNC machines, as well using both the technology as well as their skills. That is them actually basically working within the arena of new collar work. What I do want to mention though is which is something that I've been thinking of, and I believe that as HR leaders we need to actually think of this question, is how can we meet today's demands and future disruptions? And the answer is engaging and accepting new collar work.
Okay, fantastic. I like the fact that you said it's accepting and also engaging with it. Now I'm going to go over to Dr. Pillay. So how can organizations then cultivate take confidence across all levels of workforce?
I think the speakers earlier on today have touched on that. And Marlene specifically, it was the element of trust.
Yeah.
So we do understand that AI and digitalization has certainly shaped the way in which we work, to the extent that knowing is no longer a luxury. It, in fact, has become a necessity. And to that extent, I would go as far as saying that organizations should have a blended approach where we look at strategic planning, training, and apart from everything else, fostering a culture of acceptance through psychological empowerment.
Yeah.
And certainly, just keeping this in mind, we understand that technology in itself creates fear. People feel intimidated in working and just dealing and managing AI. Already there's intimidation in terms of something new that you're beginning to dabble with. And in addition to that, there is the fear of replacement. So we need to start managing that. And how do we manage that? We need to create a safe place. A safe place wherein the environment is actually more empowering. And it speaks to something that Ralph said right at the beginning in the introduction. He said we need to be more humane about this. We need to bring in the human element. And with the human lens, therefore, we create an environment within which individuals start embracing technology because organizations have created a safe space within which to work. And with that safe space, you encourage individuals to become more familiar with technology and AI, etc. And going a little further into this, we then start creating a narrative of empowerment. An empowerment to the extent that technology is not considered as a foe, but instead as a friend. because we will use AI as a tool of growth, a tool of collaboration, innovation, and excitement to the extent where we use it to transform our workplaces so it becomes better to the extent of productivity and efficiency, and it's seen as a tool of capability. And this now goes a little further. And yes, I do understand that training is important, so we need to align our organizational goals specifically to our workplace goals, and how then are we going to embrace AI to develop people to accept this.
Yeah.
Because in as much as we are not changing our work is certainly changing us. So we need to embrace this. It's exciting times within which we're living in, and let's use this to transform ourselves and the world in which we live in, specifically in South Africa, where we have a high unemployment rate. You know, we have more than 1/3 of the youth population that are unemployed. So let's use this opportunity to reskill capability.
Thank you for that. So Joseph, Dr. Pillay speaks on making sure that AI is not a foe, but is a friend. So what is the biggest barriers for employees to actually start seeing AI as a friend rather than a foe?
Yes, so thanks. Firstly, really glad to be here with you. So good afternoon, everyone. I think it's been mentioned, without a doubt, the biggest issue is fear. People have fear of the unknown, fear that, do I know enough about AI? This thing's going to take my job, etc. So people are just afraid.
Yeah.
And I think, part of what we've got to be asking ourselves is where is that fear coming from?
True.
And, I listened to the previous speakers, and for me, they've touched on it. Often employers are well-meaning, but we miss the mark. And I think often the fear comes from how we go about actually introducing technologies. So we tend to get people involved so late in the process. Just now we are doing the training, and it's the so-called change management. By then, it's arrived, and people are on the defensive. So I think if we think about just getting people involved a lot earlier, whilst you are busy deciding, let them be playing with stuff, testing it, getting a feel for what's potentially coming, getting them to understand, how is this really going to make life better for you? It's not here to replace you. We've got to get that narrative, off the table. I think if you take people along the journey with you, then they're much more likely to embrace. So we try to avoid, going through these processes. You have these lengthy processes to purchase the technology, and then you just introduce it. I think that doesn't work.
Yeah.
We're well-meaning, but it doesn't work. I think the other thing where we are probably we're missing the mark, is that there's this notion that everybody today is tech-savvy. It's not true.
Yeah.
It's not true, right? So I think employers are not spending enough time really understanding their workforce. So, for us, we're in mining. Whilst, yes, we think of technologies, let's do mobile first, etc. The reality that everybody's not like that. We've got a lot of long-tenured people who actually... They're the type of person who will refuse to use a banking app. Yep. They won't use an ATM, right? They want to go into the branch and give their money to someone.
Yeah.
That's the same. They're not going to embrace your app that you're developing anymore. So we've got to make sure we understand our people so that the technologies are truly appropriate. I think the second thing is about accessibility. And so like I've said, by the time we get about to introduce the technology, there's lots of great training, etc. which I think also tends to miss the mark.
Yeah.
You know, it's overly complicated. It doesn't talk to people, and that just heightens the fear. Then people think, oh, you know, I'm not sure I get this, etc. I think we've got to break it down. I think we've got to look for, you know, one of the things I'm starting to play with now. You know, we all know about putting mentors in place for technical skills, etc. But why are we not, you know, creating digital mentors? There are younger generations in our workforce. Utilize them to mentor the older ones who are a bit more fearful, etc., worried about being reskilled, etc. So I think we've just got to think differently about, you know, how are we bringing the technology to people, and how are we skilling them to be able to use it.
All right, thank you for that. Zizile, I'm going to come to you. Mr. Joseph just spoke about the journey of actually letting employees in from the beginning. So how can companies now encourage experimentation and also curiosity around the technologies that they do implement without penalizing failure?
I think it has been said in not so many words by previous speakers yet again, but the word is, and I think Dr. Rogers actually also touched on it, it's psychological safety. That's the most important thing. People need to know that making a mistake, an honest mistake at that, is not a career-limiting event. And that's the one thing that comes to mind, I mean, for me at least, that is very important in actually making sure, or bringing your employees along and making them feel safe in using the technologies. Whether we like it or not, I mean, it's been said that there is a lot of fear around technology. So my word, just to keep it short and neat, it's psychological safety.
All right, thank you for that. And now I'll just go to Dr. Pillay. With AI and automation now changing a whole lot of job structures, how can now HR leaders redesign their roles and also combine human creativity with machine efficiency?
I think it's important, again, I'll talk about a blended approach. I think we need to look at leadership, certainly the human element, and then technology, and how do we bring these three together?
Yeah.
So it is important that we look at the context. We're speaking about South Africa. We're in the country. We know what our challenges are, and we certainly can see what the opportunities are. So how then do we augment human capability by using AI? That's the first thing. You know, from literally, how do we move from automation to adaptability? And how then do we change the economy? In addition to this, how do we move from a state of perfection to a culture of learning?
Yeah.
Because every single day we're learning. Just sitting in this environment today, I certainly have learned quite a bit. So I think we need to also adapt to that. And we should not find ourselves in a position where 10 years later we're saying, you know, let's look at our geography. We did not provide sufficient access to people in rural communities, etc. So let's deal with all those issues right now, including accessibility to vulnerable sectors within the country.
Yeah.
Look at our social and economic development initiatives that we're doing in our organizations. Every organization, the main slogan is, you know, we invest in communities that we operate in. Okay, if that's what you're doing, then why don't you invest in terms of digital literacy right now for the future in the communities within which you're operating, partnering up with NGOs, partnering up with other community stakeholders, so you create that skills pipeline. Create it now as opposed to 10 years later, we find ourselves hitting another sort of problem. And I think we need to start thinking about it's no longer humans versus AI. We need to just cut that out. It's how do we as humans work with AI to augment our capability? And I think that is the purpose.
All right, thank you, Dr. Pillay. I'm just going to end with the very last question, and that will go to you, Joseph. And if you want to just jump on what he's already speaking on, you can do that. The question is, like, what practical steps can organizations take today to be future-proof, their workforce and also maintain a culture of continuous innovation by 2030, which is 5 years. Well, 4, if we had to count technically.
Yes, I think the first thing for me is just we've got to be clear that whilst you're mentioning 2030, the future is now. It's actually here today. So if you're only planning for the next 5 years, you are massively behind the curve. So I think that's the first thing organizations need to think about. Everybody's talking AI, it's everywhere. But I think, as HR leaders, business leaders, we've also got to just take a step back and just really assess where is your organization and make sure you don't just get caught in the hype.
Yeah.
And again, it's part of that fear, as a HR leader, you can easily get caught up in, everybody's talking AI. I don't even have an AI strategy. It's okay. It's actually okay. We're still figuring it out. So, as was said, again, in that previous session, sometimes we go too quickly. So I think you've got to make sure that you're mapping your journey appropriate for your organization. I think the other thing is just, is the issue of culture. It was mentioned earlier. I think we've just got to acknowledge our employees often can see through all of the hype. We say a lot of stuff, but we completely do other things, right? So we want innovation, etc. We say all the nice stuff, innovation culture, etc. I think it would be interesting to ask those in the room, we've all got recognition programs, etc. In the last 2 years, how many of us have recognized failed projects? Right? So we're telling people to try, but actually our actions don't support that. We say, fail fast. So we must just be careful that we're not just continuously playing lip service to things because our people see through it. So be genuine about what really matters for you. And it doesn't have to be linked to the hype. So actually, if you're in a space where you're not ready to drive this innovation culture and say, guys, just try, fail, don't say it. Because you're not ready. So don't offer up stuff that you're then not going to back with your actions. As I said earlier as well, I think you've got to just engage your people. You've got to be talking to your people. So how much you listen is going to really determine how much you get done with your workforce. So if you're not hearing from them and making sure you understand where are they at, because you've got to meet them at their point of need. Sometimes we think we know better, and then that's why we deploy things and they don't work. So, I think you've got to ask your people and then plan your journey like that. I think the other thing that I'm challenging my professionals to join me and do, is for us to be that generation of HR leaders where we are not preparing people for the future of work. Let's start thinking about preparing work for the future of people.
Oh, lovely.
Right.
Like that.
Zizile, do you want to add to that? I saw you were scribbling.
Yes, we're learning, as Dr. Raja said. Yes, I was scribbling, taking some notes from what Joseph was saying. But the one thing, just to add on to what he was saying, in this digital transformation world, we cannot leave anyone behind if we want to have a competitive edge. And just very briefly, to take it to the beginning, Mokoena, I think I need to mention this. I mean, I've been highly involved in this debate, white collar, blue collar, which is better, where can you earn more, and so forth. But now we need to move away from that because there's a new friend in town, new collar work. Yeah.
Collar worker. Are we going to give them a color? Because it was blue, it was white.
With time we'll
find a color for it. All right. No, thank you very much. I think that is it. And this was really such a great conversation to have. And I really think that our audience really enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.